Helman, coming directly back to you. You covered the Dallas Cowboys for 10 years. You do know more than anybody about these Cowboys on television. Mike McCarthy, should his job be on the line Monday?
It probably shouldn't be, but I think it has the potential to be. I don't think you can say yes or no in a vacuum. I mean, the Cowboys are coming off a 12-5 season. They went 12-5 and won the division last year. Mike McCarthy was even competitive in 2020 when Dak Prescott was out for most of the year. Like, they were eligible for the playoffs until the last weekend of the year that year. Like, Mike McCarthy, objectively, has done a really good job, and I would say an underrated job. But if they lose on Monday night, that's 2 12-5 seasons down the drain without even a playoff win to show for it. Like, not one. And it would be the second time they've lost to a team that on paper they should have beaten. Like, they were home against the Niners. The Niners are a better team than the Bucs this year, obviously, but they were home against the Niners, and now a Bucs team that doesn't have a winning record. That's not going to sit well. And I've followed Jerry Jones closely enough over the years. Like, Jerry Jones is an eternal optimist. Like, it's not even the glass isn't half full. The glass is full. The glass is full until it's not. So Jerry Jones, in his heart of hearts, even with what they did in Washington on Sunday, Jerry Jones doesn't believe they're going to lose this game. And so that's, I think, why he can say, no, of course his job's not in jeopardy. If they play poorly and lose this game, he's going to be mad. He's going to be really, really mad. It was dark times in Dallas last January when they lost that game. Like, everybody was walking on eggshells. Jerry wouldn't commit to Mike's future. Jerry was talking about how Sean Payton and Dan Quinn would make great coaches of the Dallas Cowboys. It was dicey. And that was after one playoff loss. They go 0 again. You can say whatever you want right now, but it's going to be a topic of conversation. Do I think that's fair to Mike McCarthy? Not really. I just think it's the reality.
But, Joy, what you say about life being fair?
Fair is for Ferris wheels and fried Oreos. Life is not fair. It's not fair. I know there's some concept out there. People believe that it is, but it's not. Here's the thing about Mike McCarthy. He's done an excellent job.
He really has.
If your goal is to be competitive and make it to the playoffs, he's done an excellent job. But for most teams, that's an excellent job.
They're not most teams.
That's the Dallas Cowboys, and for some reason, people think the Dallas Cowboys are Super Bowl contenders every year. I don't know why, but they do. And they certainly have the talent to be Super Bowl contenders, so that's why it's even a possibility. Because if this was anyone else, why would we even be talking about this? We would not be talking about this if it was any other team not named the Cowboys. Who's a coach who's done a better job this year than Mike McCarthy?
There are a few.
Nick Sirianni.
It's a short list.
Kyle Shanahan. Andy Reid, obviously. Sean McDermott.
Dayball,
but they don't have a better record than the Cowboys.
Yeah, but I mean, every year they lost. With what
he has, sure. And he'll probably win Coach of the Year, and Daboll's done an amazing job. I'm saying Mike McCarthy has done a great job.
For what they were working with. He's
done a great job.
Yeah. And most importantly, what to me makes Mike McCarthy unfireable is they didn't have Dak Prescott for 5 games this season and went 4-1.
Unfireable. So he's good.
If you want a good, solid culture, if you want to be able to coach the entire team, you didn't have your starting quarterback for 5 games. You went 4-1. Look at the teams that didn't have their starting quarterback this year for a few games. The Dolphins.
Except the Niners, but everybody else.
And I said Kyle Shanahan has done a better job. The Eagles didn't look great.
Didn't look good at all.
No.
We can go on and on. So the fact that Mike McCarthy was able to do that, he gets credit for that.
You're right.
Because Dak doesn't get credit for that. He wasn't there.
Right.
So to me, he's done an excellent job this year. Now, again, if they lose in the playoffs to a team that they should beat, it's probably off the table.
Yep.
But I don't know. I really don't see how you fire Mike McCarthy.
I don't think Mike McCarthy should get fired 2-5. I don't think he should Dave Helman. I don't think he should Joy Taylor. But if they lose, I have a feeling he would. And you got to think about it like this, Cowboys fans. You're likely not going to retain Kellen Moore past this season. Dave Helman, correct me if I am wrong. It'd be hard-pressed to retain Kellen Moore. Hard-pressed.
It would be surprising.
Be surprising to retain Kellen Moore. So now you got to ask yourself this question. You going to let Kellen Moore walk to another team and keep Mike McCarthy? But who in the world is Mike McCarthy in Dallas without Kellen Moore? McCarthy don't call no plays. To my knowledge, McCarthy don't design the plays. But who's Kellen Moore without Mike McCarthy? Before McCarthy even showed up, 2019, Dave Helman, you know this, we were in the Cowboys locker room. The Cowboys had the #1 offense in 2019 without McCarthy. So if you have a decision to make, and Jerry Jones will, and Mike McCarthy loses, and you can either let Kellen Moore walk out the door or you can let Mike McCarthy walk out the door. You either let the 33-year-old quarterback walk out the door that you didn't draft, but that you acquired, or you let Mike McCarthy, the old dude, walk out the door. I think Jerry Jones is going to have a decision to make, and I don't think he's going to choose McCarthy. I think he'll choose Kellen Moore. If McCarthy loses, I don't think he's safe.
Well, who to say that Kellen Moore won't go out there and
dip either way?
Yeah.
That's fair.
Because he's hot right now. People want him.
Very hot.
Right, he's doing a lot with the quarterback, and I won't get into that.
Is McCarthy safe?
I think he's safe. Yeah, he's safe. Listen, I watched Jason Garrett for 10, 12 years, wherever long, 10 years with the Cowboys.
It's about 10 years.
Yeah.
Do nothing, really, right? With three playoff appearances, 3 playoff wins in 10 years. And he stayed there. Every year they keep bringing him back. And I think he's did a way worse job than McCarthy.
Objectively, yeah.
So come on, and then this is my thing about the Cowboys. Like I get it. They're the most talked about team in football. But McCarthy's done a good job. Joe, you talked about having a backup quarterback. It's hard to win games with a backup quarterback.
Did.
Last year, they weren't disciplined at all. I mean, flag, offsides, holding, everything. They cleaned everything up. I love to see a coach get better and better with his team. This year, they're ranked like 10th in penalties. They've got better with that part. Defense, offense. He's did a great job of managing his team. And I would hate to see, and I'm an Eagle guy. For me to say this, I would hate to see a franchise like the Cowboys keep changing the head coach. Think about that for a second. Your head coach gets fired. Boom. This is going to be, going in year 4 if he returns? Yep. So in 3 years, you fire your coach. This is not the Texans. It's not the Jaguars. This is the Cowboys, America's team, so they say. So now my Dak Prescott, who I think is, well, he's their franchise quarterback. You got to get a whole new coach. Got the thing with Zeke. Got the thing with Pollard. Is he going to stay? Is he going to go? Whatever it is. So you got a whole new change. That franchise don't need to go through that. They're a respectable franchise. Don't do that.
And I think Mike McCarthy deserves a lot of credit. Bringing up Garrett is fascinating because post-Bill Parcells, which is 15 years ago at this point, this has been a roller coaster because the Cowboys haven't been able to sustain success. They haven't been to the playoffs in back-to-back years. This is the first time since the mid-2000s. It's the first time they've had consecutive 12-win seasons since they were actually winning Super Bowls, if you can believe that. Mike McCarthy deserves a hell of a lot of credit, but what I'm fascinated by, and it's so fitting that they're playing Tampa Bay, because they've played Tampa Bay twice during McCarthy's tenure.
You know that record.
They lost them both. That's fair, but one game was amazing. Season opener, 2021. Dak balled. Dak threw for 350, led him down the field for a field goal, and Tom Brady did Tom Brady things. Tom Brady led the Bucs down the field. They won the game with seconds to play. It was I don't know why you're looking at me like this. It was a classic game.
What? They lost.
Can you let me make the point? I'll make the point.
Let him make the point.
They played a great game. They lost. A year later, they opened the season at home against Tampa Bay. They played like trash. They scored 3 points. Dak Prescott threw for 134 and a pick. I still remember that. Stat line.
Touchdowns.
No touchdowns. If they play like that, if they play the game they played in Tampa 2 years ago, I think it's perfectly reasonable you keep Mike McCarthy. If they play like they played this year against Tampa, or like they played on Sunday against Washington, no touchdowns, 1 touchdown, you get blown off the field, you look like you don't belong in the playoffs, that could be a tough sell for Jerry Jones, knowing that he's been searching for a winner as long as he has. I just think he would be very, very frustrated if they lay an egg in the playoffs.
Also, I don't like this, like, Mike McCarthy's too old to coach thing.
Are people saying that?
Mike McCarthy, like, we don't need a young guy. Like, everybody's like, oh, I want a young guy. Like, great. Young guys also have never been in this position before. Mike McCarthy's won a Super Bowl. I know we want to, like, dump on Mike McCarthy because he made the little, he stepped in it with the stats and watching the, all that. He's won a Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers' only Super Bowl, might I remind you. What have they done in Green Bay since he left? They haven't been more successful because they won a Super Bowl with him there, and they haven't been back since he left.
Where do you stand, Joy, on the phrase "good is the enemy of great"? I think Mike McCarthy is a good head coach.
That's the definition of the Cowboys.
I don't think
it's also the definition of the Packers without Mike McCarthy.
And I don't think he is a great head coach. So it comes down to.
But there's only so much great. And keep in mind, if he leaves and Kellen Moore steps up and he's not great, now what? What if he's not even good? Now what? Are you going to fire Kellen Moore?
But I don't know if you can run a franchise based off a fear-based argument. Like, what in the world happens if Mike McCarthy, if we lose him and it gets worse? Don't you have to aspire for greatness and just continue to keep taking that back?
But what is great? You don't know. It's an unknown. It's also the argument that the grass isn't always greener on the other side.
But
you don't know what Kellen Moore is.
But we know
that Mike McCarthy's capable of winning a Super Bowl because he did it.
But there does come a point for me of statute of limitations on that. Like, if you won a Super Bowl 10, 11 years ago, it's like, I don't know that you are still capable of doing that. And we've talked about it. Coaches being able to change through times, coaches having to adjust their philosophies. I get he's won a Super Bowl. But I do think if you lose, you have 3 seasons of Mike McCarthy. One losing season, Dak Prescott got hurt, had to start with Andy Dalton. And then you lose in the playoffs at home, and then you lose in the playoffs where you're favored. Eventually, that isn't enough.
But it's been 3 seasons, though. And I'll take a Super Bowl over no Super Bowl. It wasn't ancient history. It's not like he won it 15, 20 years ago.
3 seasons, you say that in the sense of that's a short amount of time or a long amount of time?
Very short amount of time. And they've gotten better this year. To Shady's point, last year they were good enough, but they were sloppy. They had the most penalties in the NFL. They've gotten better this year. And again, I point out, they didn't have Dak for 5 games and won 4 of them.
I agree with you though. Like it's you can't win a championship 20 years ago and okay, you're still a championship coach. I think it's in your DNA, though. Like, you have the potential to go out there and win a championship. You know what it looks like. You know how to get there. So, and then with McCarthy, like, how many other coaches is that good to win a championship? Like, you talk about great coaches. How many great coaches is there in the NFL?
Yeah,
how many really good coaches is there in the NFL?
Only 8 active head coaches have won Super Bowls, and to Mike McCarthy's credit, he is one of them.
Subscribe here to get the latest from Speak, and go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.